Hello guys, welcome guys. So today we'll be discussing about variables. We'll be talking more about variables today. So I want us to create a class here. Let's just call it or let's create a package. Let's call it variables. So this package will keep all our variables. Example. So what is variable? When we talk about variables in a variable in Java, it's just like a name that we assign values to. So we assign values to variables. So and it can be changed in our program. So you can change the values also. So we can also say that a variable is just like a name storage that our program can manipulate. Is a name storage that our program can manipulate. So in Java, if we want to declare a variable, let's call this app1 because we've used the name app before, so that is why. So if you want to declare a variable, we have what they call, the first thing that you do is to declare a variable. You have the data type, then you have the variable name, that is the name of your variable. We'll be discussing data type very soon. Then we have the value, that the value that you want to assign to your variable. So for example, one of the data type that I would like us to discuss, to use as an example here, is integer. So when we talk about an integer data type, it stores integers, numbers like 1 to 10, 1 to 1 million, not decimal numbers, just numbers, whole numbers. So we have int. You can see that IntelliJ completed int is a keyword in Java, a reserved word. So we have int, our variable name, let's call it number 1. Then we assign our value, maybe 10. Then you close it up. So this is a variable here. So it stores values, and we declare by putting our data type. So in Java, we have different types of variables. For like now, we have another data type that we call char. This stores alphabets. You can use it to store just one number, just one alphabet. So we have A, for example. Forgot to give it our variable name. Variable name, we call it so we call it name L equals to A. You can see that what is saving one single quote. That is for char. So if it's a string, now we call it is name in double quote. String can be one letter, can be two, but a char cannot be two. It has to be only one. So here we are discussing, you can see here we have different variable names. Let's just say now that we want to save another number. We call it num1 equals to 6. We can see that we got an error because we've used this num1 already here. So we'll get an error there because of that. So for us to use, you cannot use the same name for it. Let's just say, for example, we want to put string num1 equals to, let's say, anything. You see that it is impossible because we've used this number before. So a variable has been a variable num1 is already defined in the scope. So you cannot define different variables, be different data type or whatever that it is. You cannot define the same variable. You cannot assign value to the same variable in the same method or in the same scope. So in Java we have different. Let's take away all this. Like I said, we'll be using only an integer. Then in our later examples, I will explain. In our next tutorial, I will explain different data types to us. So in Java we have different types of variable. We have three main types of variable. We have what they call local variable. We have what they call a static or class variable. Then we have what they call a variable instance or instance variable. So let's take an example first. Let's call this our first one. Let's call this let's call it a static variable. We call this our static variable. So let's take an example here. In our static variable, let's take an example for us to understand it. So let's just say that we have a variable. So when you hear static variable, means that the variable must have a static keyword. So we have something like public, static, then we have the name of the variable. Let's use a string here, because we can put the name there in double quote. So string, then let's name it our variable 1 equals to, let's call it a static variable. So let me explain some things here. There are some things that you need to know with this example here. So when we talk about variable in Java, you can see now that it comes with our data type, just like I've explained here. App1, it comes with our data type, then our number here, then we have the variable name. So here we just used number 1. What if we want to use a longer name? Let us say first number. Let's say first number. We say first number. In Java, although it works, but it is not a professional way of writing a variable name in Java. Just like you cannot put space here. It will automatically give you an error. So the professional way of writing it is that your first letter must be in small letter. You can see that when we have it in capital, it works, but you must write it in small letter, which is the first one. Then we have this next one, we begin in capital. So I want us to know that Java variables are very, very case sensitive. So let's say an int, first number is equals to 10. Int first number. We can see that both of them work. All three work, because this is different from this and is different from this. Why? Because this began with small letter, this began with capital letter and capital letter, and this began with capital letter and small letter. So Java is very case sensitive. So let's go back to our example. So we see that here we use our var as small letter beginning with small letter v, then our 1 as capital letter beginning with capital letter O. So let's take an example here. So we have our static variable. So it's declared with a static keyword. Let's call our main method here our main method. So we have, let's call, like for example, we call our class static static variable. Let's new static variable. This is called an object of the class. It's just we renaming our class to this object, to this name, so that we can easily access whatever that is in this class, which is variable 1. We can easily access it with this small letter here. So let's call, why we normally use it is because with this now we can have something like, we can have, let's copy and paste. You can have object 1, you can have object 2. So you can have different objects from just one class. So you can have different objects there. So we have like, okay, let's call it, let's say that I want to print out everything now. I want to print out this variable 1. We can say that system.out. Let me use the short form here. That is in IntelliJ. Don't forget to check out the video on how to install IntelliJ if you are not yet using it. So we say system.out.println. So let's print out our variable 1. Our one here. We can use this object to call it, which is object dot, then we type variable, that will type variable 1. So you can see that with this object you are able to call, the static method, static variable, which is here. So that is the essence of object. You can access things that are here. We can have, let's just say, let's create another static variable, public static, let's call it an integer, let's say num1, then let's give it equals to 20. So we have what we can also use system.out, then we call object dot, let's call num1. So with this you can access, with this object you can access everything that is within this class. So let's call our other one. So let's say object 1 dot variable 1. Then let's call our object 2 dot variable 1. So with this object, different object, you can access anything here in the class. In the class you can access anything. So let's print out this. Let's right click and let's run it. So we see that what we can access this with this object. We can access everything. So we have our first one printing out static variable, which is our one. Our second one printing out 20. Then our third one's printing out static variable, static variable.